You took something that didn't belong to you. I'm here to get it back. You have 9 seconds.
The mafia, they're like cancer.
They're like this place.
You can't take that from me.
From them.
I can take anything I want.
Based on the 1980s TV series of the same name, Denzel Washington.
Hello, Denzel.
Graces the screen as an ex-CIA Black Ops operative, putting his violent past behind him to live a life of normality. Sort of like John Wick or Ethan Hunt before life comes knocking.
Evening, John.
Evening, Jimmy.
Reprising his role as Robert Mcall, the expert marksman with his ultra-instinct reflexes and his trademark slow-burn gaze as the loudest eye rolls in the business. Fighting injustice to equalize the odds.
When you pray for rain, you gotta deal with the mud, too.
Denzel teams up for the 5th time with Antoine Fuqua for a Sequelizer, Equalizer 3. The final chapter to the trilogy, where we pick up with Mcall following the trauma of gouging the eyes of his best friend Pedro Pascal, and now he is in search for a life of solace in Italy until the mafia threatens his peace. Before we begin, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to be notified for future movie content. Now, Chapter 3 is to bring more of the bottle-opening, nail-driving, harpoon-fishing, brutal fatalities to comparing to the likes of John Wick, all within 15 seconds. This is everything you need to know about Equalizer 3.
King Kong ain't got shit on me!
A quick recap, Robert Mcall, a retired master Black Ops operative, now works for Home Depot, often spending his nights at a 24-hour cafe. He befriends a teenager prostitute, Terry, trying to escape the world she lives in, until the Russian mafia arrive, giving her a reality check of what happens to hookers.
Looking for a date?
No thanks, gorgeous. I'm happily married now.
Robert, seeking retribution for Terry, real name Alina, tries to buy her freedom from her handler Slavy for...
You're wanting to give me $9,000.
9,800. Cash.
Slavy refuses, so McCall smiles, locks the door. It's time for a slaughter. Denzel's superpower is to slow down time to calculate the sequence of how he obliterates his enemies, and then... Now, as a vigilante, he seeks justice for those that can't fight for themselves. From 2 corrupt police officers committing fraud and a common thief by borrowing a hammer to conduct his brutal sentence and returning the hammer without a need for a receipt.
No receipt.
Now, Slavy and his gang were a part of a bigger crime syndicate, and McCall's name comes to the desk of the head dog, Vladimir Pushkin. Vladimir's enforcer, Nikolai Ichenko, a Spetsnaz Russian operative, gives McCall a visit, a sort of a warning call before he's sending his team of mercenaries to eliminate McCall. But Denzel... McCall's past as a covert operative is unveiled, revealing his skills, training, and the origins of his moral code. His strategy to dismantle mob boss from the inside, leading to Detective Frank Masters, who's on the payroll of the Russian mafia. Threatening Masters for the destruction of one of Pushkin's money laundering warehouses, and McCall walks away like a badass. In response, Ichenko kidnaps the staff of Home Base to use as leverage. Denzel takes a page out of Home Alone, creating a whole array of DIY arsenal, like as though he's playing Hangman with Dan Bilzerian, and... hammering the final nail in the coffin for Ichenko. 3 days later, a trip to Moscow to end the war with Pushkin. Alina returns to thank Robert Mcall, now a vigilante labeled as the Equalizer. In Equalizer 2, Robert, disguised as a Muslim traveling to Turkey, seeks justice on an abusive man who abducted his own daughter. Timing his justice to another 15 seconds. Now, working as a Lyft driver, maintaining his vigilantism as the Equalizer, helping a woman who was drugged and assaulted by taking out the men that beat her. And let's just go to another kill comp. In less than 30 seconds, befriending a young youth, Miles, and then returning home where Mcall is met by his colleague Susan Plumer, investigating the murder-suicide base in Brussels. However, we know that this was no suicide. And on the team, Pedro Pascal playing Dave York, Robert's former partner. A quick search of the scene of the crime, Susan uncovers some clues, but on her return home, she is killed. Mcall investigates Susan's death, piecing together evidence that points to a larger conspiracy involving high-level corruption and betrayal, reviewing the hotel CCTV tape on the hotel of Susan's murder. Meeting up with Dave to share Susan's murder was all readily orchestrated from the start. Mcall puts on his Batman cowl and cape and turns into the world's greatest detective and starts to investigate Susan's last case, stepping into the eye of the victim and reimagining the murder that took place. Continuing as a Lyft driver, Robert is attacked by a hitman but makes quick work of him and retrieves the assassin's phone. He meets up with Dave and shares his news, including a phone number that the hitman last made.
Tell me I'm wrong, Dave.
Dave unveils his plan for deceit, the murder of Susan, and introduces him to his former squad mates who were responsible for the murder in Brussels. Robert vows for killing them all. Robert's newfound enemies heads to kill Brian, Susan's husband, but Robert takes Brian to a safe house. The same situation with Miles, but he is captured by Dave, and they travel to Robert's location, his home, an evacuated seaside town, as a hurricane approaches. Time to split up as the mercenaries search for Robert, while Dave stays watch up in a tower. And the Black Crusader does what he does best. A hand-to-hand fight sequence later, Robert, Game of Thrones Pedro, to popping his eyeball just like the way he was killed as Prince Oberyn Martell, rescuing Miles, who has been tied in the trunk of the car.
Hey, Mr. McCall.
Yeah.
Who are you, man?
Now Denzel returns to put his deadly set of skills to use one final time as he searches for a life of peace in a place of bliss, the heart of Italy, now facing off the local crime bosses and mafia with even less time than before.
9 seconds. That's what I'll give you to decide your fate.
Denzel, now at the age of 68, the one-man wrecking crew for the oppressed, joins the cast, which includes a reunion with Dakota Fanning from Man on Fire, and is that Roy from Office?
Hey, help her!
David Denman to play major antagonist. After Robert's reality is threatened, he is out for vengeance, giving his rivals an in-depth breakdown of exactly what he's going to do and how he's going to do it.
That's the median nerve that I'm compressing. On a scale from 1 to 10, that's a 2. That's a 3.
With the return of the director, Antoine Fuqua, Equalizer is going to hit theaters on September the 1st.
Do I look like a killer?
If you're liking the content, don't forget to like and subscribe.